Hi, I'm Melissa Bill, and welcome to the Business Roundup, where we catch up with the movers and shakers in the business world. Today, joining me is Hiram Chodosh. He is the president of Claremont McKenna College. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Melissa.
Learning has definitely going through a lot of changes right now. Wherever you're on with the spectrum, a lot of people are pushing for greater access to different types of education, where people, whether you're the parents or the students, have more of a say in what they're learning, how they're learning it. And then just AI is really helping to shape that future. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how it's impacting education. But I like to give the guest an opportunity to kind of discuss their background. So do you mind kind of like how you kind of got into this industry? Are you from an educational background or more tech?
Thanks for that opportunity. I think I'm in education largely because between fourth and 11th grade, I was pretty bored in school and did the minimal to be successful. And then I kind of woke up to what learning was really about, understanding that I was actually learning things on my own without relating that to the formal processes we call school, and thought I was then just completely behind and went on a tear and have never looked back. I think I'm in education today because I wanted to share the joy of overcoming those challenges with others who, like me, had imposed certain educational prejudices on themselves and their capabilities. And, education, learning is a magical thing when someone touches your shoulder and expresses a belief in you that you didn't think you had in yourself. There's nothing more powerful in the world. So I suppose that explains why I've become a lifelong learner and student and dedicated to helping others break down whatever barriers in their way between where they are today and where they want to be in the future.
That's true. I think we've all had like maybe a teacher or somebody who hopefully kind of stepped in and was able to kind of maybe like really get to us or, I don't know, have an impact on us because I know I was
Yeah.
not like the best student when I was in school, but I did have a few teachers that if it weren't for their like belief behind me and pushing me and like letting me know that I could do it, I probably would have maybe given up or not really pursued certain areas. So that's a great point.
Yeah, there's a dual commitment, really. It's unconditional support and love. The kind that you got from your grandmother, your grandfather, or your uncle, or your parents, or someone in your life. Could be a teacher or coach. And then it's, someone who would hold you to a higher standard than what you were holding yourself to. And those things we can do at the same time. And if you do that well at the same time, you can create tremendous outcomes. It's just that we think of these things as mutually exclusive or in tension with one another, or we forget while holding each other to high expectations that we actually owe each other that commitment of love and support.
Now, what are some of the things that Claremont McKenna College offers? Like, can you kind of talk to us a little bit about what they offer?
It's a school that's really about integrations of things that tend to be separated out. So the school was really founded on the integration of political science and economics. The idea was that we wanted to create great citizens and great business people, and to focus on leadership in government, business, and the professions, and the marriage of that leadership program with the liberal arts, the great questions of our day, the amplification of learning, the engagement of the imagination, the grand questions, the grand challenges. And we have really put these things together in ways that I think very few institutions have. So our students, yeah, they ask the big questions, but they want to put the answers to work. They have integrated the humanities and most recently a really big investment in the sciences, which brings us to the topic of AI and lots of technological advances. We're really trying to train our and prepare our students for the intersections that they will cross in the future. Many of them hard to frame and even unknown or unpredictable. So it's a small school that puts massive investments in each and every student. It's a school that believes in the power of community, purpose, and play. We have a very extraordinary scholar athlete leadership model in our Division III NCAA competitive athletics program. And we're only nearly 80 years old, but we've built what I think is one of the most powerful learning programs in the world to prepare our students for this very, very complex and uncertain future.
That is true, and then we're talking about that a little bit before, the future of, business programs or just education is got to factor in AI and what it's going to be like, because we are gonna be the ones, or they are gonna be the ones to try to frame how we're gonna be using AI, how this is gonna further business, the world, and just that we live in. So what are the things that you're kind of tackling or that you talk to these, students about?
Well, we have, first of all, we are very externally facing, and we've always taken on the big challenges in the world and fought back from those challenges to what our educational experience needs to look like. As an example, a few years ago, we launched a completely revolutionary approach to integrated science education, integrated undergrad science education. And what I mean by integrated is not siloed disciplines. And so, not a program that's organized by disciplinary expertise, but is organized by the grand challenges that we face as a civilization: the health of our species, with a focus on genetics and very sophisticated techniques of analysis and research and discovery and translation of that research to real solutions. Uh, the future of our brains and our brain health, from everything from learning science to uh, neurological disease to psychological health, and then, of course, the health of our planet, everything from climate to energy to environment. So we organized this department around these grand challenges, but then we basically picked apart every pedagogic innovation that we thought would be important for the future, and we integrated it all in one program. And it's for all students, not just for our science majors. And just to give you a little flavor of this, when you enter the first class, you get a real world problem, not a problem set, not something out of a textbook, but a real world problem. For example, water that is resistant to antibacterial intervention. This is a problem that kills 5 million people in the world. And it's also local. So they're studying that in one of our local counties here in Southern California, in San Bernardino County. So they have to learn the biology of water, the genetics of the biology of water, but they also have to learn something about the economics of water. And they have to learn something about the policy of the economics of water. And they have to learn something about the values that are embedded in that policy. In other words, the ethics of the policy of water. But then they have to each learn how to code in Python. They each have to learn how to build their own AI generative system from scratch. And they have to learn that in the context of solving a real world problem. So it's not something separate, not something siloed, not something that sits in their brain as a separate set of tools and experiences, but something that's integral to solving a difficult problem. They do their own independent research. They do their own collaborative research and findings. And instead of only providing those findings to a professor for a grade, they provide those findings in teams to, in this case, the Public Water Authority of San Bernardino County. Now, there are programs approaching this in the world that are for maybe 20 students in a big university. This is for every single student here. And we're now in our second year of this particular curricular requirement. And that's just the foundation of what our students will do. Our sophomores who entered the program are already creating the effective equivalent of their own research institute because they are so on fire with the problems they're solving and the translational products and solutions that they think they can bring to market. And then we have another extraordinary ecosystem for supporting their entrepreneurship and for supporting whatever enterprises come out of this. Even if they don't succeed, the learning that they get from that kind of problem-based learning is profound because we can't predict what problems they're going to encounter in 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. When they encounter those problems, they may not know anything about their nature, but they'll have drawn back on this powerful learning experience to give them the confidence that they can solve a tough problem on their own and in combination with their peers and put that solution to use for the good of society. So that's a very aggressive forward program that we've built. And in addition to the integration within the sciences, we are integrating all disciplines in the science program and then integrating some of our scientific and quantitative and computational explorations in the rest of the curriculum. So it has spurred all kinds of wonderful pedagogic experiments, all kinds of collaborations and research. We have an exciting collaboration between one of our literature professors and one of our neuroscientists to study the impact of narrative on the brain. We've always had this idea that stories influence and inspire. What do we know about it? What's the cognitive science of it? And what we're doing is preparing our students with a literacy, if not a fluency, in these tools with human beings at the center so they understand the implications of the use of these tools with the kinds of experiences that provide them with the leadership capabilities that they need to contribute to the world's challenges and contribute to them, whether it's private sector work in business, social sector work in the civic sector, in terms of the problems that neither markets nor government can on their own solve, or in government, public policy, public affairs, and so forth. And I see this in our young graduates. They're applying these tools across the board. I've got, a young graduate who's in San Francisco who's built a whole local journalism uh, business around the computational power of AI. There are just so many examples of those kinds of student-driven enterprises that we're trying to support and catch up to in many ways with our approach to education.
That's amazing. I mean, just to, when they're in school, a lot of times, like you're saying, it's just you go, you learn the basics, you have to study, whether it's or if you're going for vet, it's like organic chemistry, which I was not a fan of, but you have different curriculum. But in the end, you're just like learning what other people have kind of pretty much like put out before you, but you're not really using your mind to like try to really think and take in the things that like that we're gonna definitely encounter when yeah.
And it's particularly important in an era of AI, right? Where information, where analytics, where computation is so quick. This is the place where we need to double down on human intelligence, on intellectual leadership, on the kinds of leadership capability, the virtues, the values, the skills across uh, many bodies of expertise to have students who can manage their ignorance, who aren't scared of not knowing something, who are able to work with and through others, who are able to really look out at the world and see what might happen in these what I believe are going to be very, very big disruptions. The in terms of preparing students for the business world, um, if you have anyone on your podcast who can really predict the future of business and the future of work, you tell me who they are because we're all guessing. We're making arguably educated guesses about that, as we should. But I think what we most have to prepare for is uncertainty. And we most have to prepare for the idea that our students should graduate with ideas about how to create opportunity through the disruption. The traditional fields that were so strong, investment banking, consulting, accounting, technology, all of those business fields were incredibly strong in. But those business fields themselves are changing and we know that the canary in the mine is the data that shows that entry level positions right now in our economy are the hardest to get. That's really where the pressure point is right now. And there are lots of complex reasons for that. But to me, it means that we have to prepare our students to look laterally, to look to the sky, to look beneath the ground, to find new opportunities. And I know, for example, in through our really excellent Sol Center for Student Opportunities, we've created this kind of business cluster of networking and trying to make contact with companies. And I was just seeing the other day some data that we've got, I don't know, 8, 10 recent graduates or current students working at a a logistics technology company that, traditionally would never have come into the sort of sphere of vision of our students. They don't come here thinking, oh, I'm going to work for a logistics tech company. But this logistics tech company is paying our students $135,000 entry salaries to enter their management and leadership programs. And we've had great success there because of the multidisciplinary expertise and the integrated social and emotional maturity and poise of our students from lots of other programming interventions and investments, as an example of having to look a little bit outside the traditional lanes for opportunities to go out and contribute and in return earn a great living.
That is amazing. And I know another thing too is we are talking like AI is definitely going to affect as far as what types of business or opportunities that students are going to look into. It might not be your typical thing, and you're bringing up something too as far as like leadership. A lot of these students or people that are in college now, they're going to be like the first to kind of venture out into this new type of landscape. So they're going to have to know how to like help shape it, for the future. And that's going to be, you're right, as far as knowing how to work together, not being very narrow minded about things and being more open is really going to come into play.
Yeah, I mean, what does a chess master do when the chessboard is broken up? I mean, how do you rethink even the basic assumptions that we have? And this is one reason why you're right that it's not just about deference to an absorption of knowledge or learning a series of technical skills to an industry standard. I think that's been wrongheaded for a long time, but now AI is making a point of how wrongheaded it is because if AI can do those things, then no one's going to pay a student to answer the questions that can already be answered. They're going to pay them to pose the questions that haven't been posed. And because those questions haven't been posed, then to find the answers to those new questions. And that's why we have such a strong commitment to the liberal arts, because it is the one, and the humanities, because the one place where you ask big questions, where there is no right answer, where it's about discovery, where it's about that intersection between human experience and some external phenomena. And that's why we have a whole theme here we call self-authorship, which is a kind of fancy way of saying, I create my own life and I write my own story. And that means that I have to really think through from my own, interior, those inflection points in my life about what matters to me and what I want to do and to find that purpose within so that I can explore with those navigational tools in front of me to find the path that I want to go on. And not to say, oh, well, here's a track and the train's leaving at 7 a.m. and here are the stations that you need to meet in order to get to the last destination. That is not that linear instrumentalist approach to the future development of this great generation is not a good approach, because it's likely that that track is going to get closed or it's going to get blown up by some disruption. Or by the time they reach the destination, there's no one there, because the world has changed so fast. And that's what we're trying to do here is to prepare them for that uncertainty by giving them the tools they need to navigate around the blocks that haven't even been built before, even been built yet.
And that's a good point. So as I mean, we're talking more like university level college. What do you think, or what do you foresee for the education system in general? Do you think, elementary, middle school, do you think a lot of changes are going to start kind of being made or need to be made or some changes to get them prepared because of where we're going?
I think that we should anticipate a lot of change. I think, sadly, we can also anticipate a lot of resistance to change. And I don't say that because I'm being critical of the people in our institutions. It's largely because of the way the institutions are built. A lot of education, frankly, is built to do this year what we do because we did it last year. And for decades, that kind of conservative approach made some sense. And there were ages in the development of our own country where the structures and institutions and approaches to pedagogy made sense. I don't think those make sense for the current moment. I think that you're going to see, in some ways, much less structural change than maybe what we need. And you'll see a lot of experimentation on the edges. But if we do that right, we'll build some pretty exciting new models, both outside of the current structures and also to some extent within the current structures to kind of try to chart the course for this new age. I think some of this is in some ways getting back to basics of what learning is about and what the major axioms or assumptions, principles of learning are. We've long lost track of a number of things in our country. We've lost track of the idea of producing good citizens. Back in maybe 80 years ago, we used to have credit cards that really focused on character and the character of citizenship and respecting one another and respecting one another's property and showing up on time and just basic human values of how to be a good person in society. We've long forgotten about the power of experience in education. It's not purely cognitive or academic learning. Of course, it's fine to be tested and it's fine to be asked to deliver the right answer. Those aren't necessarily the skills I think we need for tomorrow or even today. But we've long lost track of the fact that people learn through experience, not just through the kinds of purely academic work that they do. We've lost track of the fact that people learn through others, and that we have to put students in settings where they're working in teams is one reason why sports is such a powerful learning environment. We've lost track of the fact that people learn through questions, and that a focus on questions is a much more powerful emphasis than the power of asking people for the right answers. Uh, and finally, we have to really pay attention to what we're measuring. We have pretty massive grade inflation throughout our educational system. It's not clear what a grade means anymore. We're going to have to go to other forms of behavioral and cognitive and emotional, social, as well as psychomotor measurement of the human capabilities that we want to create. And if we focus on those core axioms and the mantras that express them, that we learn what we own, take responsibility, we learn through others, we learn through questions, we learn through experience and so forth, we might be able to then, from those first principles, restructure the way we think about learning so that our educators are really focused on building from the ground up and asking students more and more to think from a blank page, not to just go first to chat GPT before they have a thought, to be able to do mental math before they attack the calculator. It's the same principle. It's why, we worry that AI could make us dumb if we fall into the rather attractive but expedient path of just over relying on it, just in the way that GPS has undermined our sense of direction or corroded our capabilities of spatial reasoning. We have the same risk with AI that we do with these other technologies. And we're going to have to compete with it, but again, by focusing on the power of human intelligence so that our students, yes, become fluent in AI and its implications and its uses, but also that they are thinking at a higher level in using AI for things that are time consuming and uh, no longer unique or distinguishing, and so that they can use their brains at a higher level of intellectual and social power to make the best of the tools. The tools for research are incredibly powerful. We're at the we're at the precipice of many, many path-breaking discoveries with the power of computation. We've seen that already in many, many areas. That's going to just take off as we speak. But then it's the application of those to the kind of society and civilization that we want to build.
That makes sense. And now for Claremont, where do you see are you gonna continue to expand? Where do you see as far as the future there?
Well, I think we're going to lean into our kind of historical and more recent success with integrating leadership and liberal arts, integrating the disciplines within not just the sciences, but the sciences and humanities and social sciences. I think that we're going to lean into our project-based learning, and we're gonna surface all the great work that our entrepreneurship center, that our financial economics institute, that our quantitative and computational lab does, um, to really focus on how we create the most powerful learning experience for our students when they develop their own enterprises, when they work in partnership with industry, when they do their own research and then seek what application this might have to make life better or to improve human conditions. And so we're going to lean into the things that we do best as an undergrad liberal arts colleges with a strong approach to real world problems. I think what that will translate into is the same sort of pedagogic innovations that we've been able to implement in the sciences to lean into those ongoing innovations in the humanities and the social sciences and other fields. So, for example, in finance, rather than only teaching the analytics and the computational tools, I think what we're going to see is a lot of attention towards institutional design, towards business model, towards disruption, both in the classroom and outside. I think in the social sciences, we already see this uh, tre- tremendously powerful role of computation, but, what's really important is that that's done within the context of a domain expertise where students actually understand what the problem's about and what's at stake. So it's not just a series of, computational tools, it's about using those tools to solve a human problem or a policy problem. And then in the humanities, the power of computation is really quite profound. It allows professors and students to do forms of analysis and discovery that were just not possible before. And we have a number of professors, both on their own, but also in collaboration with professors across the curriculum who are developing tremendously powerful research projects. And so I think like a lot of things like this where it seems like these things are happening to us where you and I didn't create AI or the phenomenon of AI, or we're in receipt of this. It's changing a lot of things pervasively in our lives. I think the real question isn't what will happen, but what do we want to happen, and not how will these tools influence us, but how will we influence the application of those tools. Those are better questions. Not that any of us has the power or agency to influence that on our own, but in common purpose, there's a lot that we can do in education and in other fields to take responsibility and take charge of the challenge, face the challenge, but take charge of the opportunity before us. There also are huge pedagogic challenges here because we know when there are new technologies, there's a tendency to do one of two extreme things. One is to reject it all altogether, which never works because the technology is too powerful to just outright universally reject it. Yes, there's time, place, and manner for restricting it. Absolutely. Or the other extreme, which is just laissez-faire, whatever happens, happens. And that just leaves everybody too vulnerable to the expediency and power of the tool. The incentive structure is just too great. And that really would make us dumb in this case. And in the middle, it's what our professors are doing. They're experimenting with all kinds of different techniques around the use of AI So things like contracts and guidelines for students that create transparency between professor and student as to how the students are using it and what attributions they give to AI so that the professor can see what their human contributions are on top or within or in collaboration with those AI tools. Or the use of AI TAs that are tuned just at the right level of feedback, not too much feedback so that it makes it easy, and not too little so that challenging problems can be guided or students can be guided in solutions to challenging problems just with enough coaching. Or experiments where students can use any AI tool they want. Why? Because the problems are just that hard. Like AI will not help you with this problem, but you go ahead, use it as much as you can. So I think it's happening very fast. I think naturally education is always going to be to some pretty significant level behind that curve just because of the way we're organized and professors are going to have to find their own way consistent with their own value systems. There's going to be a lot of experimentation. Some of it may not work. Some of it looks very promising. We're going to have to work together to surface what's most promising and share from the bottom up and peer to peer within colleges and universities, in between colleges and universities, to create the most powerful approaches to the use and regulation and leverage of these very powerful tools to advance learning and to make sure that we're putting that learning to work in ways that really improve the human condition.
And benefit us all. Yeah, definitely. And now, if people wanted more information on you, the school, the curriculum, different things that are going on, what would be the best way to find it?
Our website, cmc.edu, www.cmc.edu. They can look up any number of presentations. They can email me for more information. I'm just a click away.
Okay, perfect. Are you on LinkedIn as well?
I'm sorry you broke up there for just a moment.
Are you on LinkedIn as well?
I'm not active on LinkedIn. I'm not active on a lot of these platforms because I can't look at so many screens. But there are a number of people here that are and certainly can help.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You
Thank you for joining the Business Roundup, where we always try to bring you interviews with some of the leading people in business, whether it be technology, finance, or energy. I hope you tune in. I hope you subscribe and listen, and we'll give you updates for new interviews that are coming up. Until next time, I'm Melissa Bill.